Well, on the anniversary of that day that changed the world and led the U.S. to launch its war on terror, the Taliban sent defiant signals from the Afghan capital. They were in power in Afghanistan on September 11th of 2001 and are now back running the country. On Saturday, the group raised their flag over the presidential palace in Kabul. U.S.-led NATO forces invaded the country shortly after 9/11, toppling the regime that provided sanctuary to al-Qaeda. The Taliban retook Afghanistan just a few weeks ago.
The Taliban raised their flag over the Afghan presidential palace in Kabul the day the West mourned those lost in the September 11 attacks of 2001. The 20th anniversary of 9/11 comes just weeks after America's chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. Washington's former embassy in Kabul completely deserted. Only American hardware and Taliban fighters remain. The Islamists are still intensely defiant and distrusting of Washington's motives, past and present. The US did not attack Afghanistan to topple the Afghan government. Their main goal was China, Russia, Iran, and all the countries of Central Asia. These were their goals, but they didn't achieve them. The white Taliban flag painted at the entrance of the former US embassy leaves no doubt as to who are in charge now. And some people say they're happy that the Taliban have taken control. Dozens of female students at the Kabul University held a rally on Saturday to show their support for the Taliban. They say the Islamists have been portrayed badly by foreign media. This comes after days of protests which saw many Afghan women demonstrating against the group, demanding representation in the new administration and for their rights to be protected. Many in Kabul are wary of the Taliban, but blame the US for their current misfortunes. When the US was here, there was a lot of commotion in our country. Women were unveiled. What has America done to us? The majority of our youth fled. Many were martyred, and many others were afflicted by the US through war and misery. 20 years after the 9/11 attacks, the Taliban are back in control in Afghanistan.
And for more, I'm joined now by journalist Franz Marty. He's covering events from Kabul for us. Franz, a very symbolic gesture there by the Taliban. The timing unlikely to be a coincidence. What message were the Taliban trying to send with the hoisting of their flag on September 11th?
It is symbolic. I wouldn't tie this to September 11, though, because the Taliban haven't said officially a word about 9/11. There have been no commemoration in jihadi circles. It was apparently celebrated, but not from the Taliban side. In fact, Taliban fighters that I talked to on September 11th had no idea that it was this date. So this is not high on the list of the Taliban. Taliban flags have been all over the city before, so it is probably rather coincidence that it fell on 9/11, that they finally hosted it on the presidential palace, which they have taken over on 15th of August.
Now, when they returned to power, the Taliban promised a general amnesty to their enemies. Now it's being reported that the brother of the head of the anti-Taliban coalition in the Panjshir Valley has been shot dead by Taliban forces at a checkpoint. What do you make of that?
It's hard to verify the exact circumstances because telephones are shut off in Panjshir, and what comes from the Taliban and the resistance front is highly biased propaganda. So what exactly happened is unclear. Of course, if the reports are true that he was shot unarmed and trying to leave the country, that would, of course, be like a breach of rules of warfare. Could also be that he died in fighting. It can't be definitively said. I wouldn't overstate his importance. Honestly, before he was killed, there was barely anyone speaking about Amrullah Saleh's brother, and other figures in the resistance are arguably way more important than he was.
I want to discuss something else with you. An investigation by the New York Times is suggesting that the U.S.'s last drone strike in Afghanistan before ending this 20-year mission there may have struck an innocent aid worker who had actually worked with a California-based nonprofit and applied for resettlement in the U.S. What do you know about the circumstances of the strike?
The strike was certainly a botched operation. The U.S. officials themselves acknowledged to the New York Times that they didn't know who exactly they were targeting. It was a so-called signature strike. So according to U.S. surveillance, the target behaved in a way that is or was, according to their assessment, consistent with a terrorist. Even if this should have been true, there have been reports that confirmed reports that several children died in this strike. So even if he would have been involved somehow to kill all these children as collateral damage, is hardly squared with the a U.S. general's statement that this strike was a righteous act. It is always hard to verify. I have gotten reports that maybe one man that was killed that day might have had some links to militants that couldn't be definitively confirmed, and it's very difficult. But the strike was certainly not this precision strike that the Americans made it look like.
Franz Marty in Kabul, good speaking to you as always.